So I just want to tell you my story. I spent a lot of time teaching adults how to use visual language and doodling in the workplace. And naturally I encounter a lot of resistance, right? Because it's sort of considered to be anti-intellectual and counter to serious learning. But I have a problem with that belief because I know that doodling has a profound impact on the way that we can process information and the way that we can solve problems. So I was curious about whether there was a disconnect between the way that our society perceived doodling and the way that the reality is. So I discovered some very interesting things. For example, there's no such thing as a flattering definition of a doodle. In the 17th century, a doodle was a simpleton or a fool and a Yankee Doodle. In the 18th century, it became a verb and it meant to swear or to ridicule or to make fun of someone. In the 19th century, it was a corrupt politician, and today we have what is perhaps a most offensive definition, at least to me, which is the following. To doodle officially means to dawdle, to dilly-dally, to monkey around, to make meaningless marks, to do something of little value, substance, or import, and my personal favorite, to do nothing. No wonder people are averse to doodling at work. Doing nothing at work is a kind of masturbating at work. It's totally inappropriate. Additionally, I have horror stories from people whose teachers scolded them, of course, for doodling in classroom, and I have bosses who scolded them for doodling in the boardroom. There is a powerful cultural norm against doodling in settings in which we are supposed to learn something. And unfortunately, the press tend to reinforce this norm when they're reporting on a dueling scene who know of an important person at a confirmation hearing and the like. They typically use words like discovered, a caught, or found out, as if there's some sort of criminal act being committed. And additionally, there is a psychological aversion to dueling. Thank you, Freud. In the 1930s, Freud told us that you could analyze people's psyches based on the doodle. This is not accurate, but it did happen to Tony Blair at Davos Forum in 2005, when the doodle was, of course, discovered, and it was labeled the following things. Now, it turned out to be Bill Gates' doodle, and Bill, you here, nobody thinks you're megalomaniacal. But that does contribute, right, to people not wanting to share the doodles. And here's the real deal. Here's what I believe. I think our culture is so intensely focused on verbal information that we're almost blinded to the value of doodling. And I'm not comfortable with that. And so because of that belief that a thing needs to be burst, I'm here to set it all hurtling back to the truth. And here's the truth. Doodling is an incredibly powerful tool. And it is a tool that we need to remember and to relearn. So here's the new definition for doodling. And I hope there's someone in here from the Oxford English Dictionary because I want to talk to you later. And here's the real deal. Doodling is really to make spontaneous marks to help yourself think. That is why millions of people doodle. Here's another interesting truth about the doodle. People who doodle when are exposed to verbal information retain more information than their non-doodling counterparts. We think dealing with something we do when you lose focus, but in reality, it's a preemptive measure to stop you from losing focus. And additionally, it has a profound effect on creative problem solving and deep information processing. There are four ways that learners intake information and decide so that they can make decisions. They are visual, auditory, reading and writing, and kinesthetic. In order for us to really chew information and do something with it, we have to engage at least two of those modalities, or we have to engage one of those modalities coupled with an emotional experience. The incredible contribution of the doodle is that it engages all four learning modalities with the possibility of an emotional experience. And I think that is incredible. And that is a pretty solid contribution. That is a pretty solid contribution to a behavior equated with doing nothing. This is so naughty, but this made me cry when I discovered this. they did anthropological research into the unfolding of artistic activity in children, and they found that across space and time, children all over the world exhibit the same evolution in visual language as they grow. In other words, they have a shared and growing complexity as in visual language that happens in a predictable order. And I think that is incredible. I think that means Judo is native, and we simply are denying that our instinct. And finally, a lot of people are privy to this, but a doodle is a precursor to one of our greatest cultural assets. This is but one. This is Gary, the architecture precursor to the Guggenheim in Abu Dhabi. So here's my point. Under no circumstances should dueling be eradicated, even in the classroom, in a boardroom, or even the war room. On the contrary, dueling should be leveraged in precisely those situations where information density is very high, and the need for processing the information is very high. And I will go you one further, because dueling is so universally accessible, and it is not intimidating as an art form. It can be leveraged as a portal through which we move people into a higher levels of visual literacy. My friends, the doodle has never been the nemesis of the intellectual thought. In reality, it's one of its greatest allies.